by herself. And the
where
whole
all
time
this weird stuff had just happened.
You literally just left this place. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I wanted to say this up top before we get started today. I'm here with Ron. Ron, say hi.
Hello.
So I wanted to go ahead and say hello because I think we have some new listeners since the last time we talked.
Yay!
So yay!
Applause.
We wanted to say hi. Thank you so much for considering us and giving us a listen.
Thank you for lowering your standards.
For letting us talk to you for a little bit. It's been really great. I was texting Ronnie today. We got an unexpected amount of support and love from the horror community this week, and it was really so nice to see. Especially, I haven't really had a chance to like talk about this with you yet, Ron. But it's been a crappy week for me, like emotionally, mentally. Like long story short, it's that time of the month, and so I'm just like emotionally not in the right headspace. So, but anyway, it's been super nice to get that kind of feedback from other people. I don't know about you, Ronnie. You're probably more aware of this than I am. The book community, the writing community, and the horror community in particular. I've always, as somebody on the outside looking in, I've always heard such wonderful things about these communities, which kind of all run in the same circles as kind of being some of the sweetest and most supportive people all around. And to kind of see the truth to that this week was really so nice and overwhelming. So we just want to say thank you and kind of just give you a little bit of info on where you can find us online. So normally I would do this at the end of the episode, but this time I'm going to do it up at the top. You can find us on Instagram and Threads as @ScreamSister. We are also on YouTube as @ScreamSister. And then you can also find us on our website, screamsister.com. What else? We don't have, so with regards to our YouTube channel, because I was texting Ronnie about this afternoon too, we don't actually have like video recordings of us podcasting yet because Ronnie and I are still very new to this technology. We're still figuring it out, and it's like a house of cards right now. We've barely gotten it to a place where we feel good about it. So
well, and to give credit, I just show up for these recordings and watch the movies. Valerie is the one that does like all the behind the scenes. She's the one who even figured out how any of this stuff works because I'm very technology challenged. But if we could ever work on getting like video aspect, it would be great because I talk with my hands, so I feel like all this motion is being wasted.
Well, yeah, we're
sorry,
both. That's
I
Ronnie
just hit
hitting
my
the mic.
cap on the mic.
No, but we're both kind of the same way. We're both very visual people. Like last episode when I was talking about Wasetta and I was describing all the bone cracking that she does, nobody but Ronnie got to benefit from me like physically acting that out on the screen. So, but yeah, one day we'll get to a point where we feel brave enough trying to record video and putting that out there. By now, I hope you figured out that you were listening to Scream Sister. We are a podcast dedicated to scary movies and creepy books. Veronica and I generally like to focus on Spanish language horror and Latinx authors, but that's by no means the only thing we talk about. We talk about a bunch of other movies, including like for my purposes, like we've dived into like 80s horror movies before where we've talked about stuff I've never seen because I was like a young child when all that stuff came out. But yeah, Spanish language horror is primarily where we're at. Thank you again for giving us a listen. Ron, how are you doing? How is your weekend going so far?
It's good. As you know, it's my youngest Spawn's 14th birthday, my baby. I have 4 kids for those that don't know, which is everybody. So my youngest just turned 14, so it's kind of his birthday weekend. So we'll be going out to dinner later tonight at his favorite Chinese restaurant.
He's looking so
He's
the photos
tall.
that you tall. I mean, he's looking like a full-on adult. I guess like the last time I saw him was July, but I feel like he's grown even since then. So he's very
pretty much as tall as I am. His older brother, who is 19, is not happy that it looks like his brother is going to surpass him in height. So he's always like, "Bro, stop growing."
Well, that's good. I'm glad he's having.
You said you had a hard week, but any bright spots in the week?
I'm just trying to keep my head above water. I am. I think I don't know if I texted you this or not, but Veronica, I am back on my true crime shenanigans. So I'm
still watching that channel that shows Dateline 24/7.
Well, I've told you this before. I go in waves with the true crime stuff because I'll get into a space where I am just like binging podcasts, I'm binging documentary shows like that, and kind of just absorbing it all. And then I'll burn out off of it. And, I think I've told you this, like, you got to take mental health breaks at a certain point and kind of like take a break from the real life horror and go to like fictional horror or whatever.
Fictional horror, the cheery stuff.
So yeah, I've been like binging on that stuff, and I'm kind of back in that headspace of convincing myself that all we need to do is just sort of take up a life of solving cold case crimes, and that with our zero experience and no years of expertise, we could be great at it. That's it. Other than that, we just had Labor Day weekend. We were down in Harlingen visiting family. I got to hear this wild, wacky story, Ron, that I still haven't had. I told you I was going to tell you.
You texted me and I haven't even told me.
I can't tell you on the podcast. I was given.
It's too gross.
It's too remarkable. That is the word that I'm going with. Like it would be so perfect. It's straight out of a horror movie, but like I wouldn't dare divulge it on the podcast because we just made new friends, new folks listening, and I don't want to scare them away. But it's a pretty gnarly story, so I'll tell you at some point. Other than that, I've just been kind of sailing along. Oh, the other thing I was going to mention before we launch into film stuff, I want to make sure that we talk about, normally we would not be telling guys what's coming up in the weeks ahead because we're not that organized.
We don't know. We have no idea.
We're not that organized, but this is that rare moment where we kind of have an idea. We've been communicating back and forth about how the next couple of weeks will go. So our next episode will be coming in early October, and that's going to be our book club discussion episode. That's where we're going to be talking about Our Share of Night by Mariana Enriquez. That was our selected read. And so that episode is just going to be book club. We're not going to be talking about a movie that week. It's just going to be focused on the book. And we will, I think it's a really cool idea to kind of keep it going. So we'll probably also on that episode announce what our next book club read will be. And you're welcome to read along with us, and so that you can be part of the discussion episode for that pick. In the meantime, and we'll be posting about it online, but in the meantime, as we get ready for that book club discussion episode, definitely if you had a chance to read this book or you had already read it, please, message us your thoughts, your questions, your opinions. You can also just like post them online in all of the spaces that we're at, and we'd love to share that stuff on the show. So be sure to share it with us. And then, book club rules. Like, Ron, I'm going to have a glass of wine when we're recording. So it'll be, you can bring your cup of tea or whatever it is you want to do. So,
Diet Dr. Pepper.
Diet Dr. Pepper, whatever makes you happy.
I can drink it in a wine glass.
There you go. So yeah, that's what's coming up. And then we also will be doing, the hope is that we're going to get to have a kind of bonus episode where we're going to be interviewing a good friend of mine that I've talked about on a previous episode. His name's Pete Barnstrom. He's a writer in the San Antonio area. We'll be talking a little bit about his love for horror comedy and kind of what some of the things are that he's worked on in the past. He is a writer on the movie anthology Satanic Hispanics, which just launched into theaters on September 14th. So if you haven't had a chance to go see it, go see it. I do want to point this out. Pete is not a member of the Guild. And so this is not going to be a case where we are like crossing picket lines or anything like that. Solidarity with the writers. We support the writer's strike 100%. So he's not going to be coming on he's not a member of the Guild. So he's not violating strike rules in any way. So we're not pulling a Drew Barrymore here. Let's go ahead and jump right into our film of the week. We decided to take a different beat this time around. So we are going to be venturing into the horror comedy realm, which is super fun. I love horror comedy. It's the blending of two great worlds. So we'll be talking about 2023's Fenómena, or Fenómenas. This was a horror film centered around a real life group that has been active since the 1970s throughout a lot of Spain. Just a little bit about the movie real quick. It's directed by Carlos Therón, and it stars Belén Rueda, Gracia Olayo, and Toni Acosta, which, Ron, I did want to mention, did you ever see The Orphanage?
No.
We'll have to watch that one.
That one.
It's a great one. And Belén Rueda.
Is that Guillermo del Toro?
I think.
No?
I think he co-produced it or something. It's not directed by him. I looked at that today, but I think he was instrumental in production support for that. And Belén played Laura in that movie. And so that's where I knew her from, because the whole time I was watching this, I was like, she looks really, I've seen this woman before. And that's who that is. And I was like, okay. And she's great in The Orphanage, and she's great in this too, I thought. So we'll do a little bit of a synopsis about it. So what I wrote down is, in the late 1990s Spain, three middle-aged women are investigating paranormal occurrences, and then they're put to the test when their leader, Father Pilon, goes missing. This is inspired by the real, I think it's Hepta Group, unless it's pronounced differently. And we'll be talking a little bit about that actual group that this movie is kind of inspired by. We'll be talking about that in our discussion. So just a spoiler before we begin, we do talk about the movies in full on these episodes. So if you haven't had a chance to see this, you should definitely give it a look. It's on Netflix right now. It's a Netflix film, I believe. So it's on Netflix. Go check it out, and then you can come back and listen to our episode. So Ron, what did you think? Did you like it, or how did you like it?
I did like it. I think I was expecting more something along the lines of like Shaun of the Dead kind of horror comedy. It wasn't quite to that like comedy level. Yeah, it wasn't quite to that comedic level, but I still enjoyed it. It certainly wasn't as heavy as some of the other foreign horror films that we've seen to date. The ending left me feeling a lot more cheery than most of the other ones did. So I enjoyed it. I did like it. I liked that the protagonists were women of a certain age.
Yeah.
In fact, I think there was only two characters that were under the age of like 25. Everybody else was older, so that was great. And I liked kind of the interaction that the three mature women had, and just their fearlessness. They just had no fear of anything. It was like the sort of stuff is just every day to them, which I guess it is. That's kind of what they do. Whereas I would have been like freaking out. They were just kind of like, this is just another day.
Another day at the office.
Yeah. And I like their different personalities. I think Paz was my favorite one. She was kind of the no nonsense, but she also kind of had more of the comedic lines, or the comedically timed lines, I should say. But she was just kind of no nonsense, kind of gets the job done. So I liked her the best. So I did. I enjoyed it. Yeah. I had no idea what to expect, but it was a nice surprise. It was a nice, like you said, nice change of pace from what we've been watching, the heavier stuff we've been watching up until now.
Yeah, like I totally agree. I also kind of got teary at the end. I thought it was really beautiful moments there at the end that I thought were very touching. I feel like it was Golden Girls meets Ghostbusters or something. Like
that's a good
one. Their dynamic as these three women, fun and bickering, and that back and forth, I thought was really cool. It was charming, it was spooky, but not overly so. The humor moments were fun, like you said, not necessarily laugh out loud funny, but plenty of lighthearted moments.
But so let me see if I got this character wise straight. So Gloria is the medium, the seer, yes. Apparently also a pharmacist on the side, and from what I got from it was like these ladies have been at this for a while now, and so Gloria is kind of at the point in her life she's trying to date, and she's considering like stepping away from this life.
Right.
And then Paz, like I said, she was kind of the no nonsense. She kind of handles all the audio visual stuff. So she's recording and, working all the equipment. And I'm not quite sure what Sagradio's role, like what my dog just burst in again.
I see the door opening. She's like busted. You know why I thought about this is because she's not used to you being in here on the weekends. Like, you're in your office right now. Yeah. And she's like, you're not supposed to be in here. What are you doing?
Just busting. Okay. But yeah, so I wasn't clear like what. I mean, I know Sagradio is the one that her husband had passed away, and so she maybe initially got involved with the hope of contacting the spirit of her dead husband. But I'm not sure, like in a day-to-day functioning of this group, what her role is. Did you pick up? I didn't really get that.
No, other than I guess she's. Like, if I had to say anything, I feel like she's became like the face of the group. Like, she was the one, like the spokesperson, and the one who was kind of like getting their name out there and making them be known. And then, Paz was sort of like if I had to, like, Ghostbusters wise, I would say Paz is like the Ray, Dan Aykroyd's character. And then I guess, that would make Sagrio Bill Murray's character, just sort of the flashy one who's kind of like your public facing figure. So
that makes sense. I could see her as kind of the PR person.
Did you catch, Ron? So at the end of the movie, when the camera zooms out and you see those old ladies turning the corner on the street, those were the real ladies. Those are the real.
Oh, were they?
Yeah.
I wondered if it was. I noticed them and that there were three of them, and I was wondering like what that was, if that was supposed to symbolize something.
Yeah.
So it was the actual three women, because I know that one of the women, the real life women, passed away maybe shortly after this movie was made or released.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
because
cool
I
that
have,
she got it to be in the movie.
yeah, because I have that she died, Paloma, I don't even,
Navarrete?
yeah, that she died in 2022. So she may have
Yeah.
died before this movie could be released. So they
That's
dedicated
cool
it to
that
her.
they got her in there, that she has a part in there.
So I did have a question. I just saw this movie last night, and I have already forgotten. So I'm just like fried this week. What I was kind of expecting when the mother, the lady who greets Father Pilon when he shows up, just the movie opens where they're supposed to be having a Hepta Group meeting, and nobody shows to it. Gloria's on a date, Paz is tied up with her grandkids, and Sagrio and Father Pilon are there, as well as like a college student that they've pulled in to sort of assist. And the meeting is awash because nobody can make it. So, they all leave for the night, and Father Pilon makes the decision, the unwise decision.
Say, unwise.
He goes to the place of their new case. It's a antique shop. He goes to go investigate on his own. So yeah, rule number, like we've talked about, buddy
Bad
system.
idea. Yes.
Buddy system. You don't go
backup.
off.
You need backup.
You need somebody tag teaming with you. So he goes
At the very least, you need someone that can run for help.
So he is greeted by a woman who's like, I don't know, a tenant or
she's a superintendent.
Yeah. And so she greets him, and she seems normal enough, lets him in, yada yada. And then obviously Father Polon falls victim to this poltergeist, and so I guess like his spirit is somewhere in the in-between world, but his body is obviously still there in the real world, and so he ends up in the hospital. That's Father Pilon. That's like his role in the film, is just that happens to him early on, and then that's just it. He's unconscious in the hospital the rest of the movie. So, but that woman, we later learn, has a daughter, and this was the question I had, because later on in the movie we do learn, and we can talk about how we come to learn it, but we do learn that she is like abusing her little girl. So I guess what I kind of expected was that we were going to find out when the women finally show up and they conduct a seance to try and figure out what happened to Father Pilon and what is going on in this antique shop. The shop's owners are there with them, and it's a couple, a woman and a man named Enrique, and I forget what her name is, but Enrique ends up being the vessel that this evil spirit embodies. So he kind of takes possession of Enrique, and then I guess what I kind of expected that we would learn that this mom who's beating up her little girl, that she was doing that because when the evil spirit essentially releases Enrique and like leaves his body, I kind of thought we were going to learn that the evil spirit then entered her, the mother. Is that not what happened? Was she just a bad human?
It was a bit confusing. I can see where you and maybe that is the way it was meant to be portrayed. I figured that it was because at the end of the movie, like when they're leaving and when they figure out that, when the three women figure out that the mom has been abusing the daughter, they kind of write off all the poltergeisty activity because that's what poltergeists are thought to do anyway. It's usually kind of centered around one person, a lot of times a younger teenage female, for whatever reason. That's probably some kind of patriarchal viewpoint there. Right. But anyway, so they kind of write off everything that had happened when the antique owners were there, all that weird stuff. They just kind of wrote it off as, oh, well, this is all just energy that's emanating from the trauma that this little girl is going through. And so she's caused all this. So they kind of write it off, so I don't think that I don't think that this evil entity spirit embodied the mother.
Yeah. I mean,
I think she's just a bad
person. Yeah. Cause like I was waiting for that to be the revelation. And then I was like, I don't think that ever was the revelation. So maybe that's not what it was. Yeah. She was just a bad human. Then when they learn that, how they discover that the mother is in fact abusing her little girl is that when all of this like crazy hysteria happens with the shop owners and the evil spirit possessing Enrique, and then when finally like releases him, Enrique and his wife or whatever leave, they get taken away presumably to a hospital because he needs medical help.
The shell of a man at the end of that.
And then these three women, our Golden Girl Ghostbusters, I guess like they go to a bar, right? Like right around the corner or something, smoking up a chimney. These women are smoking throughout this entire movie.
This whole movie, I was like, my
just
God.
Like chain smoking cigarettes. And so they're there kind of like having a drink and talking about what happened, and then like Sagrio and Gloria get into it. They get into a fight. And Gloria leaves, and so then Sagrio and Paz go back to the antique shop on their own, and Sagrio decides she's going to go talk to that little girl because she needs to like get an eyewitness account or whatever. And Paz is going to go into the
By
antique
herself.
shop by herself. And the
Where
whole
all
time I
this
was
weird
like,
stuff had just happened.
you literally just left this place where
I
all
know.
of this crazy crap went down, and now you're in there by yourself. That's not smart. So yeah, but that's when she's reviewing the footage that she had just recorded over those hours or however long they were gone. That's where she sees in the mirror of the wardrobe that she can see like in the reflection of the window across the way where
it was
mother.
that Spanish architecture again. That's kind of like seemed to me like it was built in, like the building is in a U shape. So like
Right.
she's in.
Well, I think
Like in
it also,
Veronica.
I think it's also like if you remember like all the novellas growing up that we would see as kids, in all of the novellas, there was always a courtyard, and the courtyard is where all the drama is happening. So yeah, it's sort of like every building, there's a courtyard. And so you can just sort of be spying on your neighbors. So she sees exactly the recorded footage of this mother beating up on this little girl. So, you know.
And the daughter had like Down syndrome, right?
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was like there's like a meme that was floating around on Instagram this week kind of talking about how girls be like, this is my comfort movie and the movie is The Exorcist. And so this is kind of what that felt like. It felt like a comfort movie to me. It was, I could easily have this on for nights when I want to enjoy something a little spooky, but nothing too like heavy, which speaking of, I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about the ending, talking about like what you found emotional, Ron, because you said you kind of got emotional at the end. And so did I. So I just want to see like what did you find?
That.
I don't know. Did you say? I thought you said you got kind of like did you?
No, you're making things. No, you said.
I did. I teared up.
When did you get emotional?
Well, I teared up because like in the ending scene, what happens is like, so when all of that's going down, we learn, or Sagrio learns that and Paz both learn that this woman is the one who is beating up on her little girl. The mother.
We'll backtrack to a little piece that we learn early on in the show when it shows like a clip from when they were much younger. And we learn a little bit of information that didn't make any sense at the time, but it's going to tie back into the ending where they learned that apparently they had a case that happened at a place called the Vergara Palace. Vergara Palace, where things didn't go well. Like it's been the one case where Gloria almost didn't come back to herself after, manifesting or having a spirit embody her, whatever mediums do. So that's all we learn. We don't know anything about the case except that was kind of a blip in her success rate, and she doesn't like to talk about it.
So then what happens is like once they figure this out, the mother catches on that they know, and so like the mother starts trying to attack Sagrio and Paz in her apartment. So the reason that she figures it out is because the little girl kind of like rats them out unintentionally, but she's like, goodbye mother, I'm leaving. And like, they were trying to sneak her out. So their cover was blown at that point. So then the mother is attacking them, and she comes very close to choking Sagrio to death. And at the last second, Gloria, who is, a little bit of a psychic, she can kind of intuit when things are not right or when something is wrong, someone's in trouble. So she shows up at the last minute, saves Sagrio, and knocks a woman out or something with her ball, her like crystal ball. Sorry, that's Luna. That's my dog.
The dogs are taking over today.
Shh, this is not your show. Anyway, so then they're like all headed down to the car. And this was another thing that I missed. Why they're in the car, they're getting ready to leave, and Gloria looks distressed and then makes the decision to go back in. What does she do that for? Because I missed that moment.
She says she has to go back in to get her crystal ball. Which turns out that, when the other two are left in the van waiting, they want a cigarette again. So they're looking for a cigarette. So Sagrario takes Gloria's purse, and she's looking for a cigarette and says, the crystal ball's in here. What I wasn't clear on, because when Gloria gets out of the van, she says, I've got to go back in to get my ball. She closes the door, and she has a look on her face, though, like I got the impression that wasn't the reason she was going back in, that it was just an excuse to go back in. It was just a very knowing look, and maybe I just totally misread it.
No, that's the same thing I had. I was like, I felt like she was distressed about something, and it wasn't the ball. It was like she was going back in for something.
Right. And this is going to tie back into that tidbit of information about that one failed case from her past, because it turns out that the entity or the poltergeist or whatever the heck it is in that antique shop was not, negative energy or whatever manifested by the young girl that was getting abused by her mother. It's this actually, spirit that they call, what was it? Sarmiento, that is the same entity from that one failed case. So
from the Vergara Palace. Yeah.
Yeah, from the Vergara Palace. So I'm thinking at that point, somehow, maybe Gloria realized that it was the same entity. Why she chose to go back in by herself. Again, this is the third person in this group. All should know better.
You can't be doing it. You can't be doing it. But yeah, so she goes back in. She immediately gets taken by this spirit into I guess it's like a crypt or something behind the wardrobe. So they're able to move the wardrobe and determine that there's some sort of like crypt or cell somewhere behind it. So they go, and she's already, when they find Gloria, she's already
totally taken over.
Yeah, the fully taken over by the spirit, who is now talking to the women in his voice. And so he's making it clear that they'll be judged. We come to later find out that what he's talking about is that this was also a priest, right? He was a priest.
Like back in what do they call it? Back when the Catholic Church was like burning all the witches, the Inquisition? Well, I don't know if it was in the Inquisition, but anyway, he's from like centuries and centuries in the past.
Witch hysteria. So he's hunting down witches and what people he believes to be practicing witchcraft. And he had a goal in mind that he was going to hunt down as many or more witches than this other particular figure who was very notable at the time. So he just needed 3 more in order to surpass that total. And so these were his 3 quote unquote witches that he was going to go after: Paz, Sagrio, and Gloria. And during this time when she's being taken over by the spirit, she in the other world, I guess, in the in-between world, she is communicating with Father Bilon, who's telling her, you need to, I don't know, what is he telling her? What is he telling her? I don't even remember. What did he tell her? Something to the effect of like, you need to see this through.
Yeah, just kind of pumping, he's being her hype man. He's telling her, you're stronger than you can do this. Bring him to me. It's kind of like that scene in Harry Potter where I don't know if you ever saw Harry Potter.
I'm not familiar with it. I didn't see a lot of the Harry Potter.
Well, in the movies anyway. I never read the books. I just watched it because my children watch it. But anyway, totally unrelated. Forget that. Scratch that. But so he's in his coma, her being a medium. They're communicating somehow, and he's just basically trying to pump her up, telling her, you can do this. You're more powerful than you know. Bring him to me. Which at the time we don't exactly know what that means, but she's just doing, I don't know, spiritual battle with this Sarmiento.
With this spirit, yeah. And so then she finally kind of like recognizes what she has to do, and so she's internally, you can see her like warring with this spirit, trying to emerge in control of herself again. And at a certain point, I guess she passes out, or maybe the spirit releases her, or I don't know what. No, it's not that he releases her. It's that she does bring the spirit to Father Pilon, and then Father Pilon is able to take that entity. They cross over together, presumably to
I think Father Pilon was dying. I think he was really, I don't know, maybe he was intentionally just hanging on to do this. But yeah, he takes
essentially
the evil spirit with him.
Sacrifices himself to take this spirit with him and rid the world of him. So that leaves Gloria passed out in this crypt cell or whatever, which is like drastically filling up with water. And so these women have to get out of there because they're going to drown.
Where is this water coming from? I don't know.
Yeah, where it's coming from, I have no idea. But they got to move fast. And a beam, like an overhead wooden beam, falls and lands on Gloria, effectively like trapping her. So Paz is trying to free her and can't do it. And so Sagrio comes to. She'd been passed out, but she comes to and recognizes that what she has to do is she has to use the belt that she's been wearing throughout this movie, which was her Carlos, her husband's belt, who she does not have at the beginning. She's a widower, or not? Is it widow? She's a widow. Widow. Yeah, men are widowers.
Men are widowers.
Okay, so she's a widow. She recognizes that she has to use this belt to save her friend, and it's kind of an emotional. This is what made me tear up, is because the whole spiel of Sagrio is that she is a woman who, this entire time, and her whole reason for joining this group in the first place was that she was trying to find her husband in the afterworld and in the afterlife, and trying to communicate with him. And like Houdini and his wife, which I know thanks to like listening to, I think it's like the Lore podcast or something, but Houdini and his wife kind of had this pact where it's like if either one of them died, they had a code, and so they would sort of communicate to one another to let them know that the afterlife existed, or like that spirits were real, and something to that effect. So after Houdini dies, or I don't know, I think Houdini died, or either that
he
or
is dead. Yes.
He died. He did die.
I can confirm he is dead.
Okay. But after he died, for like years, his wife held seance after seance trying to communicate with him, and it never really materialized. So that's sort of what Sagrio's been doing all this time. She's been trying to communicate with her husband. And that's kind of like where I think the tension was between her and Gloria is like, she's like, all this time, all of these cases, you've been wildly successful. And you're telling me you've never once been able to communicate with my Carlos. And so she's bitter about that. But in that moment, she makes that decision. I'm going to save my friend. I'm going to use this thing that has been so special to me and that symbolizes the man I've loved and lost. And so she does it. She saves her. They pull her out. And then as she looks back, Sagrio watches the belt fall from the beam and kind of just sink underwater. And she kind of just, she makes her peace in that moment that she's going to let him go.
Yeah.
And
it's
move forward. Yeah, it's a goodbye. And so I was just like, this is so special. It's like, this is emotional. I thought that was the moment for me that I thought was really nice and a nice little, like I said, Golden Girls sister moment. But yeah, overall, I liked it a lot.
Now, Valerie,
yeah,
because I don't know if you know, did you watch till the, because I left it on playing the credits because I don't know why they chose such an American song. What was it? Abracadabra? Abracadabra. I'm gonna reach out. So they're playing that credits. Song. I did because I like the song and I was listening to it and there was an end credit scene.
No, I didn't see it.
But I don't understand it.
Well, tell me because I didn't see it. Dang it.
So the guy, I don't know his name. He was the waiter in whatever that little cafe was that they met.
The one who's hitting on Sagrio.
Yeah.
Flirting with her.
It shows him and there's like this stack of glasses, like drinking glasses, and they're all stacked, upside down, like they've been washed and they've been stacked like in tiers. And like one by one, they just start breaking and falling away. And then he just kind of gets like a weird smile on his face. And then it ends. So I don't know what that was about.
Maybe they're lining things up for a sequel because like I read a snippet of somebody's review saying that you kind of almost want this to be like a series or something.
Yeah, like a TV show.
Yeah, like I would totally watch it as a series. I would watch a procedural with these women where every episode they're solving a new case. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean maybe they'll come back with a second movie. I totally miss that. But I
would have too, except I happen to like that song, so I was like let it roll.
Well, that'd be cool. That'd be really cool. I'd be on board for that because this just came out this year. So maybe they'll, everybody go watch this movie. So it'll be successful and then they'll make another one. But yeah, so as we said at the up top, this is based off of an actual real group. Ron, I don't know if you had a chance to sort of look at any of the stuff. Oh, did you have a chance to look at that video I sent you to watch it?
They talk really fast. So I had to watch it a few times. But it's basically stuff that was all mentioned in the movie.
So these were the real Hepta Group women that were in this clip.
Yeah, group women. The two of them that were still alive after the. Actually, we should probably name the actual names of the women. It was Sol Blanco Soler, Paloma Navarrete. She's the one who passed away in 2022, and then Piedad Cavero. Hopefully, I'm saying that right. Those were the three actual women, but they pretty much just was kind of repeating of stuff that was already incorporated into the movie, especially in that little throwback, flashback, whatever interview that the three women were doing when they were younger. They were just talking about how the group was founded by Padre Pilon, who was doing exorcisms in Spain at the time, back in 87. The women got involved after attending, I don't know if they were called workshops or seminars that he would give. So they attended those and that's how they got involved. And they're just talking about how they were doing it to not only help people, like living people, but also to help the dead, and just, how rewarding it was for them. That's pretty much the gist of it.
Yeah. See, I mean, this is what we need to do. We just need to attend those kinds of workshops and seminars, get a little bit of training under our belt, and then start our own society where we're solving. But yeah.
And they talked about how it's not the dead that we should fear, it's the living that we should fear. I was reminded when we got the backstory of the Sarmiento dude, the entity that was the witch hunter back in whenever he was alive and killing witches, I remember a meme that I had seen somewhere that was, why were we taught to fear witches instead of the people who burned them? Right. Those are the evil people that we should have been fearing.
Exactly. One thing that I did write down about Padre Pilon is that he was a Jesuit priest And so, yeah, he specialized in paranormal phenomena and wrote a lot of books on that topic. So, yeah, that group, which was, I think they were in their heyday in the 80s and 90s. They are still in operation today. So, when we post our show notes, we'll have these resources that we looked at, including their official website. They do have an official website, grupohepta.com. And so they're still in operation today. And so I think that's kind of cool. It added an extra element of enjoyment for me to watch this movie, knowing that this was based off of something that was real. And apparently that particular, like that antique shop, much of this movie was kind of based on like things that actually did happen. So what I wrote down was, this was a description from the mediums of the group. The lamps would move by themselves. For example, the ornaments that hang from the lamps that appeared in other rooms, they would kind of like jump in front of their eyes, or they would break. Faucets would turn on their own. Sometimes it would seem like tableware had fallen on the floor. Other times there would be like an overwhelming rotten smell in the space. And then it would become like a scent of roses. Somebody said that it smelled like burnt hair inside one of the closets. So yeah.
Am I the only one who thinks roses are kind of stinky?
I like this. You're not the only one. I've heard other people say the same thing. I like the smell of
they don't
rose.
Smell bad, but I don't think they smell especially pretty.
You know why I think I am fond of the smell of rose is because I think I associate it with a lot of the things that like our grandmas would have. Like I remember going over to Dad's mom's house and she'd have like rose scented soaps or something in the bathroom. So like I associate it with our grandparents, and so that's why. But yeah, you're not the only one. I know of other people who are like rose stinks. they hate rose fragrant stuff. So we'll jump into books and stuff that we're reading and looking at. Like I said, the next episode, when we come back, we will be doing our book club discussion. So finish up Our Share of Night if you're reading it, and we will jump into that next episode. But for this particular episode, I had asked Ron if you have fave reads of like 2022. I know that this is already like the end of 2023, so maybe you have some reads from this year as well. What were some of your fave reads of like the past year that you want to talk, or that you want to recommend, that you're like, you guys must reads, I guess?
I am still finishing Our Share of Night. I've got, I don't know, maybe a couple of 100 pages left, but just like, see, if we were video, I could show the thickness of,
exactly what it is.
I'm holding up my fingers to show the thickness of how much I've left, but it's not very much. So I should be finishing that up soon. But another book that I read, I don't remember why I started it, because it's not, usually I'm attracted to books either because I've heard of them or I'm in the bookstore and the cover draws me, and then I read the blurb on the back and it sounds interesting. This particular book is called Game of Kings by Dorothy Dunnett. I'd never heard of. Nobody in my book world has ever talked about it, or I don't know anybody else that's read it. Cover wasn't particularly, I don't know why I picked it. I think I picked it up at a half price bookstore. Anyway, for whatever reason, I picked it up and I started to read it. And it's a difficult read because the main character, like when is it set? It's set during the time when like Queen Mary of Scotland was like a little girl, whenever that was.
Okay. Okay.
And it's about, the main character is a fictional Scottish noble with kind of a seriously checkered past. But anyway, he talks in a way where he's always making these references to like Renaissance painter. I took it to be like if it was a modern day person making a lot of pop culture references that someone from another time, like maybe 500 years in the future, would have no idea what he's saying or what it means, or how to, the context that he's using it in. So the first book has a lot of that. Like he's talking, every sentence has some kind of reference that you're like, what the hell does that mean? So for me, I was like having to stop every like 2 minutes to look something up to like, well, who is this painter and what does he mean when he's using this? So it's a challenging read. It's not for everybody. Now that I've kind of looked into groups that have read these books, because it's a series of like 5 or 6 books and I'm halfway through the second one. People either love it or they don't like it because it is a challenging read. But by the time I got to the end, I immediately, because I was like, oh my God, what it's a lot of like twists and pulling the rug out from under you. So by the time I got to the end, I was like, oh my God, what did I just read? I immediately went back, read it again. And then after that, I immediately got the audiobook and listened to the audiobook, which is excellent. Like the narrator is excellent. And I've listened to the audiobook probably in total in the space of a year, I've probably reread that book like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was like, it seems like you're reading it over and over. So very good book then.
It's complex. Like there's like, if I was somebody who annotated books, which I wish I could, but I just can't bring it in myself to like write in books or highlight my personal books. Like, see my video?
You can't see it, but tabs. she has a book with like a bunch of sticky tabs in it.
Because there's so many little things that I don't know. I just love it. So I'm like halfway through the second book. So the Game of King, I think it's called the Lyman Chronicles is the series. So
okay, the Lyman. Who is it by?
Lyman,
who's the author?
Lymond.
Lyman. Who's the author?
Dorothy Dunnett.
Okay,
but I would recommend that one.
Well, I think I read this in October of last year, so it's been about a year. But this was a series. This is a series. I've only read this particular book because somebody from our book club in our neighborhood suggested it. So I read The King's Witch by Tracy Borman. So not a Latin author, but it is a series. I really liked it. It was kind of slow to get into. Once it got going, it was really good. So a piece of historical fiction and not really so much horror, but more like mystery, I suppose, and more like suspense thriller. So it takes place during the reign of King James of Scotland. So King James of Scotland has just assumed the throne or whatever. And so it centers around one of the young women who serves in his court. And she's something of like an herbalist. She's like a natural healer. And that's all she is. But during his reign, he's kind of like this notorious Puritan. And so he's rooting out people he believes are practicing witchcraft or people he believes are witches. And it's all very politically motivated. Who has pissed me off this particular week because I'm going to accuse him of witchcraft. So it's, obviously a precursor to a lot of like the witch hysteria that would make its way over to our side of the pond, years later. But I thought it was really interesting. You might actually like this book, Ron, because it's historical fiction. It's kind of, I don't want to say fantasy. It's not fantasy, but it was just really interesting. And to know that it's a series kind of makes me intrigued to see what happens coming out of the end of this particular story. So that one was, I thought, a worthwhile read. And then this one, full disclosure, I have not read this book. I watched the Netflix movie, but I want to read the book. The book looks really, or the story anyway, looks really good. So it's The Pale Blue Eye by Louis Bayard. And the Netflix movie has got like Christian Bale. And it's kind of like, again, kind of murder mystery vibes. Features a young Edgar Allan Poe. Like there's a character who is like young Edgar Allan Poe. So I that's right up my alley. So I really liked the movie. I want to read the book because I know the book is probably going to be infinitely stronger. So
speaking of Edgar Allan Poe, have you seen, I just saw something like in entertainment news the other day, and I don't know which streaming platform it's coming to, but it's going to be a series, and it's called The Fall of the House of Usher. So it's going to be a book based on that. So
it's going to be Netflix. I think it's Netflix. Okay. Is it a book that's already out, or what is it based off of? Is it based off of
Edgar Allan Poe's short story, The Fall of the House of Usher?
But is there a book that's going to be like talking about that story of his Fall of the House of Usher?
No, and it looks to be, from the pictures that I've seen, I haven't seen like a trailer or anything, but from the set photos that I've seen, it looks to be set like in modern. So it's like a modern family, telling the Usher family, and I don't know exactly.
I mean, I'm excited about like checking that out because I think I don't know who's all is in it, but I thought that maybe I looked at like a movie poster.
The only one I recognized from the pictures was the lady that played the mom in Spy Kids.
Well, she is
Carla Gugino.
And she is the woman. She's been in like the Haunting of Hill House. Did you watch that one?
No.
You have to see that one. That was a good one.
It's on my list of things to watch.
Haunting of Hill House. I think also she did Haunting of the Other House.
Bly Manor.
Yeah. I didn't watch that one. The kid actors in that particular series, I was not feeling. So but I liked Haunting of Hill House a lot. That one was really great. See, I hear all of that when you're moving and getting up and down. Okay.
Well, because
Veronica's adjusting. The other question I was going to ask, I didn't really have any DNFs from this past year, but did you have any DNFs, the do not finish books that you just couldn't get into, didn't finish, wouldn't recommend?
Oh, I have a lot of DNF books. There was a time when I would not DNF books, even if I was like hating the book and just wasn't enjoying it at all. I would make myself finish. And then I realized, hey, girl, you're not going to live forever. And the time you're spending reading this book that you're hating is time you could be reading like your next great literary love. So I DNF books all the time.
What do you do with the DNF books, like the physical copies of books? You donate them?
I hang on to them for a long while, just in case, because let me tell you, there are times where I will DNF a book and set it aside, because sometimes it's just a matter, it's like the wrong time. I'm just not in the mood for that particular book. It doesn't happen very often, I will admit. But every once in a while, there is a case where, I DNF it, I put it aside for a long while, and then I will go back to it and it clicks the second time. And then like one case in particular called, what the hell is it called? It's called The Necromancer.
That sounds cool.
And the first time I picked it up, again, this is one of those books that I picked up because the cover was just a cool cover. So I picked it up and I started to read it, and it just seemed real dry to me, and it just wasn't clicking. So I put it away, and it sat there for years until I'm on Goodreads, and I'm not as active now as I used to be, sadly. But one of the book groups that I belonged to on Goodreads picked that book. It's called Johannes Cabal, The Necromancer by Jonathan L. Howard. They picked that book that month to read. So I thought, well, I already have it, so let me just go ahead and I'll give it another try. Well, all of a sudden, for whatever reason, I loved it. And again, this is another instance where the minute I finished it, I went and I got the audiobook and I listened to it, and the narrator for that is also awesome.
Is that something you do a lot? Like if you really like a book, do you automatically go check out the audiobook?
Usually, yes.
Why?
But audiobooks are more often misses rather than hits for me, because if I don't like the narrator, I can't. In fact, sometimes I'm wary of listening to a book for the first time via audiobook, because if I don't like the narrator, like that can just ruin the story, and then I just won't even have any interest in reading the actual book myself.
That's so fascinating, because I would almost be the reverse. I would almost be like hesitant to do that because of like I have a very clear idea in my head of what the story sounds like to me. So if I love the story and then I go listen to the audiobook and it's a letdown, it almost like it would take me out of my little fantasy of the book as it lived in my head before this other, and maybe it wouldn't, maybe I would be fine and I could dismiss it.
That's a case where it was a DNF the first time around, and the second time I picked it up. Now granted, I probably would never have picked it up again if it hadn't been the choice for the monthly read for that particular book club. And most of the time I don't ever, they just sit there in a stack mocking me.
But so that's so fascinating to me. So you don't get rid of them. You just hang on.
I do eventually,
okay.
But it might be years. I might let them sit there for a few years, and then
you're like, I will take them to the grave.
I was like, just face it, you're just never going to read these books. You're just never going to pick them up.
Okay, well, do you have any? My last question for you: do you have any like books that are just like your defining Veronica books? Like if you wanted to give people kind of an idea of who you are, what you're about, what would be your recommendations? Like what is a Veronica book? Like for me, a Valerie book is The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas. I know I've like talked about that so much to you that you probably hate it. That's a Val book all the way. That's Val vibes. So that would be. And, like I can't totally answer this question until we get to our next episode when we discuss our share of night. But like for you, is there a book that this has got Veronica vibes all over it?
Well, Lord of the Rings, because I feel like that kind of pretty much set the tone for a lot of the books that I read, because I do tend to gravitate towards a lot of fantasy, occasional mystery. And the other thing is, it's hard for me to pick like a single book. Like Lord of the Rings is a single, like big, huge volume that was broken down and published in 3 parts, but it's essentially just one big book. But it's hard for me to pick like a single book, because most of what I read, because most of what you find in fantasy is they're not standalone books. It's a series. So I can name series that are me. There's the Malazan Book of the Fallen, which is a 10 book series. I'm on book 8 or 9. There's the Game of Kings, the Lyman Chronicle series that I was mentioning earlier. That's shaping up to be another me series. And then anything written by Guy Gavriel Kay.
Okay.
He's like one of my favorite authors. He just has he has just a very poetic, but not like overly flowery poetic writing. It's just very elegant, but it's very accessible. And I just love his stories are always bittersweet. Like they have their happy moments, but it also has like their moments that just, they're just bittersweet. And I just
like true to life kind of situation. Like
it's you don't always get completely what you want.
Right. Okay.
There's always a little bit of like, oh, I wish it could have been this way. I wish it could have been different.
Okay, well, so just to remind everybody again, the next episode is going to be just book club. So get the book finished. Send us your thoughts or questions or opinions. You can email us. I didn't say this at the top, I don't think. You can email us at screamsister every single time. I think it's screamsister@gmail.com. If it's not, then it's screamsister. I'm pretty sure it's screamsister@gmail.com. I don't think it's screamsisterpod. I will have it in the show notes though, and it'll be correct there. So check the show notes for that. You can also like go to our website and like message us from there. Lastly, guys, if you like what you're hearing so far, stick around with us, follow the show, give us a rate and review. It kind of helps other people find us. We're starting to find our community, and we want to keep connecting with you guys and keep finding our way to more of you. So definitely share us with your friends and family who are of the spooky persuasion.
And if you have some movies that you'd like to recommend that you think we should watch,
that's right.
Or books that we should read,
yes,
let us know.
Yes. If you've got movie recommendations, if you've got more movies in the horror comedy variety, definitely hit us up with those, because we like to mix it up. And I think it is good for our mental health to take a break every now and then from the trauma of some of these more disturbing horror movies and go with something light. So we'll catch you guys in October for our book club discussion. Thank you so much. Scream Sister is a Nest production hosted by me, Valerie, and Veronica. Editing by me. Production support for this episode provided by Lorenzo Villarreal and Alex Street.